Heavenly Father, we thank you for your goodness and your watch care. We thank you for all the things that you continue to do for us. We ask and pray that you would be with us, that you would bless us in these studies. Amen. Just one. It really wasn't my intention to go into the 25-20 in a really. When I say deep, this isn't even that deep, but at this step, we've gone this way. So the reason I say it is because I don't have notes to give you, so it's a bit hard to read. I'll follow through with statements when you don't have notes in front of you. But hopefully, we're going to you can get through. It's easy enough just to listen. But what I mean is, if I would just read the Spirit Prophecy, you could just listen to it and you'd be okay. But I wanted to make detailed points about Spirit Prophecy, so it gets hard to know if I'm with you. But we'll try and manage along. This is Spalding and McGann, page 1. There are some collections that are really good in the Spirit Prophecy, and one of the ones that I really like is the Spalding and McGann collection. If you ever got a free moment and you don't know what to read, you just want to have a read. Spalding and McGann is a really nice collection, and the other one is it's John somebody. I'll remember the name anyway.
Is it one?
SPM 1.3.
1 point, that is a point.
Page 1, paragraph 3.
Right, yeah, that's okay. I just wasn't sure that was a point.
That's in page 1?
Page 1, paragraph.
Yeah. I'll find the other one because the other one is a really good place for you to get a lot of information from. Yes, this is the person. So this is Spalding and McGann, and the other one is John Harper Bell. John Harper Bell. Just John Bell. He was a teacher. He was one of our most competent teachers in the early Advent movement. And Ellen White writes a letter to him. It's a series of letters, and it's 17 MR. We're not going to read it, so the page numbers don't matter. They're really good source documents, particularly this one. 17 MR is a really good document to go through. It contains a substantial number of the quotes that we use regularly when we're dealing with ideas or thoughts on this movement. John Bell was a teacher, and it seems to be a consistent theme with God's people. Once you push people, use the phrase, you push their buttons. Once you start irritating people, people begin to brace themselves and defend themselves, and often they become unbalanced. This is what happened to this man. He's a teacher, he's not a theologian, and people didn't like his ideas on his teaching technique, even though he got a lot of backing and support from Ellen White. And as it is most of the time with these men, Ellen White's counselling them and mentioning them, saying the way you're handling these accusations and this pressure is not right, because they end up resisting and fighting in the flesh. And she's always telling them not to do that. Most of them just don't listen. It's a consistent thing. When you and all of us are faced with this problem, that when people resist what you're saying, you end up going in the flesh, sinning. That's what I mean by flesh. You sin in your defence. And this person has Wagner and Jones, I already discussed, they have a problem. Most of the leadership have the same problem. This person has the same problem, and he ends up, in some shape or form, trying to defend himself in various ways, and he ends up having these variant views of prophecy. So on the right, Ellen White writes in this extensive correspondence, which is really good for you to read, because it contains a number of passages that deal with statements that we use on a regular basis. But that's not where we're going. We're looking at Spalding and McGann, page 1, paragraph 3. She's talking about these charts. There's many things we could say about charts, and you remember Sister Marie said that she got sent an email which strung a lot of the chart quotes together, and it really helped to establish her in the faith. Ellen White says this. And the reason why it would be nice if I wrote it down, it's about 9 lines long, but you can structure it in a really nice way. She's going to do this. Some people got it on their phones. Yeah? Okay. So it's hard to see, you won't see the structure on the phone. But she says this, I saw. And she's going to say, I saw 3 times. So she's going to say, I saw 3 times. And then she's going to say that. And she's going to say that 8 times. She's going to say that, and that. So it's when you see it laid out and you just re-edit it, it's a really nice format. And when you do that, for me, it becomes a lot clearer the point that she wants to make. One point that I want to say to you, I don't know if you're all aware, I presume that you are. 1 second, let me just. When you read Steps to Christ, The Great Controversy, any of Ellen White's major books, Christ Object Lessons, etc., what you're not reading is Ellen White's virgin materials. Those books have been edited. She has a team of people who are going to go and correct her language, clarify things, make them more understandable, sort out the spelling mistakes. Then they're going to hand her back the document, she's going to check it, and it's going to get re-edited until she's happy that everything's okay. But there are some of her statements that are not edited. They're just virgin Ellen White statements as it is. And sometimes her use of language isn't as flowing and as clear as you might want it to be. Someone's already mentioned early writing 74, which covers a number of issues, but it talks about the issue of the daily. And the reason why that prophecy is so controversial is because, we're not going to read it, but if you read it, it says basically something like this. It says, the daily, something, 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 and then it says time, no longer. So it's dealing with these issues, and because the way it's formatted in early writings, page 74, people are going to try and connect these two thoughts together. But if you go back to the original, what you'll see is Ellen White has, when she's in vision, she has this technique in her language. It's almost like staccato. Does everybody know what I mean by staccato? It's like bullet points. She's going to make a point, and she's going to change subject, make a point. She might go back on the original subject to make another point. She's making these points or bullet points, or it's very staccato. It's not flowing. And if you understand that's how she portrays her visions, and sometimes how she writes, and a lot of the time that gets covered up in these major writings, because when you see Ellen White in Steps to Christ, you think this is beautiful language, and then you read, you're going to take that kind of style and you're going to bring it into early writing 74, and you can expect to do the same thing. Look at this beautiful flowing paragraph, and when you do that, you're going to fall foul, because what we should really be doing is, these should be bullet points. When you go back to the original source document, because early writings isn't the original one that it was produced in, you'll see that early writings itself was edited. It was edited in its formatting, as well as a few of the words. But in its original, what her point is, she's making different points. She's going to make a point about the daily, then she's making a separate point about time. They're not connected. And if you can understand that, many of the arguments that people have over page 74 in early writings wouldn't be a problem. It'd be relatively straightforward because it's two separate issues. The issue of the daily and the issue of time, prophetic time, no longer being an issue for God's people. And she kind of does the same thing here in this Fall in the McGann quote. So that's why I structured it in this way. If you can see, she's going to say, I saw 3 times. So she saw 3 separate things. Obviously when she says I saw, it means it was direct vision. She saw something, either in a parable type thing, or she had a conversation with God, but she sees something. And then she's going to say, she sees that, that and that, then that and that, and then another 3 that's. So if whoever's got the thing, we'll read it together. She says, I saw that the truth should be made plain upon tables. So the first thing she's going to see is that the truth should be made plain upon tables. So there's truth plain on tables. Now I'm reticent to read too much into everything about what's going on, but I don't think I'm going to be reading too much into it if I make some commentary, or the following commentary. The first statement she says is that we should make the truth plain upon tables. It is a comma after it, but that's a point, because afterwards she's going to say that. And if you go to it says the laws, and then it's comma and that necessary means. Can we see that there's 3 that's, and then it says I saw. It's a bit hard to see when you're just reading it through. Can we see that? It says, maybe I'll read it first then. I saw that the truth should be made plain upon tables, that the earth and the fullness thereof is the Lord's, and that the necessary means should not be spared to make it plain. Then she says, I saw that the old chart was directed by the hand of the Lord, and that not the figure of it should be altered except by inspiration. Then she says, I saw that the figures of the chart were as God would have them, and that his hand was over and hid a mistake in some of the figures, so that none should see it till his hand was removed. You've got 8 that's, and there are 8 individual points, and the way she structured this paragraph is in this classic Ellen White staccato style. But we want to make it all flow together, and we lose the point or the emphasis that she's trying to make. So the first point she wants to make is that we're supposed to get this truth, whatever the truth is, and we're supposed to make it plain on tables. Now this plain on tables, she's referring back to Habakkuk chapter 2. Because in Habakkuk chapter 2, maybe we should quickly read that. Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 1. I will stand upon my watch and set me upon the tower, and I will watch to see what he will say unto me, and what I shall answer when I am reproved. Verse 2 is where we want to get to. And the Lord answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it. Now, as you're reading that statement from Ellen White, if you don't have a King James Bible, a lot of what she says doesn't make sense, because what you won't know is the following. Oh, one step back. If you're not familiar with the King James, when you're reading Ellen White, you won't realise that she's quoting scripture an awful lot, because they're not going to put it in quotation marks. You know, sometimes there's a discussion of Bible versions that Ellen White uses, which I'm not going to field questions on. But the point I want to make is, the vast majority of Ellen White's Bible quotes, she doesn't quote Bible in quotation marks and tells you what verse or chapter or book it's in. She just says something that she wants to say, and she'll get a Bible phrase and tuck it in. And unless you're familiar with the King James language, it's very hard to pick it up. Because if you're used to using a revised version, it's not language that you're familiar with, and you'll think that this is Ellen White's virgin material, virgin statement, original words, and it's not. So she says, I saw the truth should be made plain upon tables. That 3 words, plain upon tables, you could just read it, and you think this is just some statement that she's making, but she's quoting scripture here. And part of your task when you're reading Ellen White is to look out for the hidden Bible verses that she's tucked into her statements. Because when you do that, it begins to lock in what her point is at various levels. One of the things that we've got a really bad habit of when we're dealing on this message, because this message is a message of what? It's a 3-step. What kind of test?
Yeah.
What kind of test? 3-step prophetic test.
Of course.
Because this is prophecy. And what did I say? We didn't even go to the spirit prophecy quote because we didn't have a chance to. How do we deal with prophecy? What are you supposed to do when you're dealing with prophecy?
Line upon line.
You look back.
Oh, yes.
You look back. That's what line upon line means.
Yeah.
It means repeat of history. You need to look back. You should always be looking back, and we've got a really bad habit of not hammering that home to people and not following through with that mandate. So as soon as she says, make it plain upon tables, what should be the first thing that you do? Oh, the first thing is you go and find the Bible verse that she's talking about. Then you find the book that she's dealing with, and what should you be doing with that book? Sorry?
Studying, laying it out on the line?
Yes, but the first thing you need to do is find out when the book was written.
Okay.
Who wrote it, who he was writing to, and what's the dynamics and what's the situation that's going on. It probably slipped your mind, but I gave you that information about the book of Habakkuk and Amos. The book of Habakkuk is around the same time as Isaiah.
Yeah.
It's around the same kind of time. And so here's Hoshea, the last king, and we're in Habakkuk. Habakkuk is here, and he's forewarning the nation about what's about to happen. So as soon as you know that, then it makes sense why she's saying what she's saying. She could have quoted from many different places, but the fact that it's Habakkuk, and Habakkuk is placed here, you need to know that so that you can make a correct end-time application. If you don't do that, you end up making mistakes. There's many things we could talk about Habakkuk, but I'm just going to point this one thing out. In verse 2 it says, write the vision. So we're talking about prophecy. The first thing you want to do is understand what the vision is. You need to know what vision is Habakkuk talking about. Because whatever vision Habakkuk's talking about, what's Ellen White talking about? She's quoted Habakkuk.
Yeah.
So what is she talking about?
Same.
She must be talking about the same vision.
Thing, yeah.
So whatever she's saying in these 8 that's, she's talking about the same vision that Habakkuk is talking about. And if you don't know what Habakkuk's talking about, you end up not knowing what she's talking about. So we want to understand that. What I'm doing, so that we're all clear, we're dealing with the 2520, and my sister asked me yesterday, can we address the great controversy statement about the longest and last time prophecy? So that's what we're addressing. Hopefully, we'll get through it, but we may not do, because I want to try and do it justice so you can see it's not as straightforward as reading a few words in a paragraph and making some kind of pontifical statement about it. There's a lot of background on this. So it says the truth should be made plain upon table. So here she says, she starts with the statement, the truth, but she's quoted Habakkuk chapter 2. When it says plain upon tables, this is what it says, verse 2, Habakkuk 2, and the Lord answered me and said, write the vision and make it, here it comes, plain upon tables. You've got to have a King James to do this, otherwise you're not going to prove it to yourself. Those 3 words, plain upon tables, that's where she's quoting from. And she says, whatever these tables are, what are you supposed to do? Get the truth and make it plain upon tables. Okay, so here's a table. By the way, what is a table? Just so that we're all on the same page. What do we think a table is?
A chart.
So if you're into Excel, then you could do a table, or it could be a table like this, because you can get that imagery from the scriptures. Isaiah 28, it says their tables are full of Vomit.
Yeah.
And their tables that they're talking about, in Isaiah 28, the two tables that the church created in rebellion to God. So there's this table. You might think about it. Here's a table, or a tablet,
Yeah.
or a real literal table, if you like. So we're on the same ballpark. When we're talking about table, it's some kind of document that's easy to grapple or deal with, that is being called a table. So what are you supposed to put on the table? Lost my sister.
She's hot, she's got to get changed.
It's got to get changed. Okay, we'll stop here for a second. We'll pick up the subject in a second. Here's Millerite history. The first, second and third step. And let's back this up here. And here's the first. So we've got the first arrives, the first is empowered, the second arrives, the second is empowered, and the third arrives. And that's Midnight Cry. And 1798, everybody should be shouting them out by now, they've done it so often. 1840,
Yeah.
44, 44, October, April.
April and
Yeah.
August.
And August.
In August, yeah.
August.
August 44. Is everybody comfortable with that?
Mm-hmm.
Some people are.
Isn't the 1840 in August one too?
Yeah. I didn't put the dates and things on.
Okay. So when should no, I won't preempt, it's alright.
When what?
Okay.
When?
Oh, I was just going to say, when we're talking about tables then, I know you're going to explain it now, but that's what you mean, that.
That's what we mean, because this is a table, isn't it? And this is they're all tables.
Table.
Yeah.
And so, and every time you come across something, that's what you do, you write it up on the table so you can understand it more, and it's laid out
Exactly.
more plainly.
Make it plain. You've got some complicated. What have you got that's complicated in Habakkuk chapter 2? What's difficult to grasp? What word are you going to pick up that's hard to grasp in verse 2 that you need to make plain? The vision. You need to get this vision, which is not easy, and simplify it by putting it on the table. Okay, and that's what we do. It's exactly what my sister said. It's. We put a whiteboard here. It's this very idea, this concept that you get a complicated subject and you make it plain or clear upon tables. So in Habakkuk chapter 2 it says the vision. So it says vision. But what does Ellen White say? She doesn't mention any vision. What does she say in the statement?
The truth.
She says truth. I don't think I've gone through this with you because I didn't get an example, a specific one. But we've spoken before about repeat and enlarge. Everybody understands what repeat and enlarge is?
Yes.
It means you get a piece of information and you repeat it. And when you repeat it, you expand or enlarge upon it. And you can do this in many, many different ways. You can get a Bible verse in Genesis, and then you can get a Bible verse in Revelation, and it would be a repeat and enlargement, because this would be Genesis 3, this would be Revelation 14. You're repeating the everlasting gospel, but enlarging upon it. Repeat and enlarge. We could do a verse, and here's my verse, and it says something here, and then it says something afterwards in any particular verse. I call this part A and part B. So we could get a verse and split it into two sections. Most of the time the translators will already split it for you. They've got a comma, semicolon or a colon to split it. And this would be a repeat and enlarge. So B would be a repeat and enlarge. So that would mean that A and B are the same thing. So A equals B, or I could do it this way, A and B, and do it like this. So I'm just showing A and B are the same thing in just various different graphical representations. And that's what repeat and enlarge is. And you can do repeat and enlarge between what the Bible says and what Ellen White says. So that's what we're doing here. So we've got A and B, this is the Bible, and this is the spirit of prophecy. And the things that are going to connect them together, because you have to prove the connection. If you don't prove the connection, you can't say which is A and which is B. So the connection is this. Let me put it like this. Here's A and B. And the connection is this statement over here. And you have to have them the same. And so this is the table. So Spirit of Prophecy talks about a table, Habakkuk talks about a table, but Habakkuk says it's what? The vision.
Yeah.
And Ellen White says it's
The truth.
truth. So once you know that, you know that this vision and this truth are exactly the same thing. Let me just check how she expresses it to make sure I'm not going to misquote her. So in Habakkuk 2, it says the vision, and Ellen White says the truth. So I just want to make another point. We'll bring it up here. The word "the" is technically called the definite article. It's kind of a grammatical term. It doesn't really matter what it means, but it's talking about something specific. It's not a general thing. There's something specific that it's talking about. So if I said a dog, what would I be talking about? You wouldn't know. You say, which one? If I say the dog, you know I'm talking about a definite dog. That's the definite article. That's the easiest way to stick. If I say the, it's something specific. Yep, it's a particular one. So Habakkuk saying the vision, and Ellen White saying the truth. So my question to you is, what is the vision? And how many of them are there? How many visions are there?
One.
There's only one vision, but it says the dog. You can't say the dogs. Unless, but even if you say the dogs, it will still be a particular group. But it doesn't say visions in the plural. By the way, when the King James Latest translated the Bible, and it was a plural, they knew it was plural or singular. They're not that silly. And if it was visions in the plural, they would have put an S at the end of it. They do know that. So it's a singular vision that he's referring to. So the question is, we're now saying that the vision, the truth, and what is it? What is the vision that Habakkuk's talking about? He wants to venture a guess. This one? It can't be, because this vision, this chart was produced thousands of years after this one. So the point I'm making is, you need to go and understand what he's talking about
in his time
to understand what we're going to do at the end of the world.
Yeah.
So my brother isn't wrong, he's obviously right. But the point I want to make is you need to see what he's talking about when he's dealing with the vision.
You've got to go back.
The entire history.
But it's only a singular
Like
vision.
2520, he's talking about the Chalzone.
How do you know that?
Oh, because I just looked at it on my
Well done. Well done. Did you know that before?
Well, I know about the Chalzone, yeah.
But you know that before that you were
I have checked it, but I couldn't remember.
Okay. So he's talking about a specific vision that he wants to deal with. And you know we just did it here, this repeat and enlarge technique. The other one that we've spoken about is, you can call it proof texting or line upon line, or here a little or there a little, Isaiah 28. So the way you do that, remember we did it here, we're connecting the table, and this is the way we're going to link these two statements together, by the word table. So you go, you search in the Bible and it says table, you found your verse, you go to Ellen White's way and you find table, then you link them together. Yeah? So what you can do is, if you go to this word vision, and you find out what that word vision is, you can go in the Bible and type the word vision, you're going to get vision lots of different places. But it's not that easy to do that. I mean, to get the right answer, it's not that sophisticated, it's not that simplistic. So this word vision is derived from a Hebrew word. And when you look at what this word vision is that's being used here, then you can get that Hebrew word, and then you can find out where else it's being addressed. So, as my sister said, this word is the hazon. And
Hazon or Kazon?
you asked the pronunciation? It's h, silent C, hazon.
Make it for the 2016 generation.
Yeah, that's right.
Sorry?
2016 generation.
Yeah, hazon.
Kazon.
H. I don't understand what you mean. You want me to corrupt the language to make you happy? I can't do that. That's what the church tells me to do. Corrupt the word of God to make us happy. And we're not allowed to do that. So 2016 people, they have to say it's his own vision. Sorry.
We're going to return to the old parts, okay?
No, that's a nice way of saying it. So you can go and track what this vision is, this his own vision, and it will take you to many, many different places. But the point I want to make is that it's one vision, a singular thought, a singular concept. And Ellen White says it's the truth. And then it says here, on tables. And Ellen White agreed it's on tables. Now she's going to prove to you, we're not going to read the verse, it's in a great controversy. She says, when the Millerites read this verse in the back of chapter 2, it inspired them to make this chart. So they got all their information and put it on the chart, and they called it a table. And so the vision that's been spoken about is the 1843 chart. And the problem is, there's no S with that, because it's only a singular chart. Then Ellen White now is going to say, I saw that the truth should be made plain upon tables. And let me just check something quickly before I go on any further. I think I've got it here. But I forgot to... So, she's going to be talking about tables in the plural, so it's tables. And as we read on, she's going to explain what needs to happen on this. So she's got these two tables that she's talking about. So what do we know about the two tables? How many visions is it?
One.
So both of these charts, there's only one vision, and we know that whatever that vision is, it's truth. So you've got a singular vision, because it says the vision, the definite article, and you've got two charts, the 43 chart and the 50 chart, and when you add them together, it gets to one vision, and it's the truth. So we know we know with that? Everybody, are you happy with that? The tables, the two tables, is a singular vision, and it's got the truth in it. And not in it, I mean it is the truth. Let me put it actually, because she said it's the truth. So the first thing we should be doing is, as we come to all of this history, what do we know all of this is? It's all
The truth.
truth.
Yeah.
Everything on that chart is truth. Because all of this is how many visions? One vision. Because it says the vision, it's only one vision, and so this must be the same, it's only one vision. Are we okay with that?
That's As far as the chart is concerned, obviously there's different visions that have gone into that chart, but as far as Habakkuk is concerned in the tables, that represents one vision. Yeah.
I'm just reading it as it's
Yes,
one vision.
Yes.
It's one vision. What if we read about William Miller? Ellen White says he was given what?
The commencement of the chain.
He was given the commencement. What else was he given?
3 days.
So it's 3 commencement days,
Yeah.
but it says that he was shown link after link. And so here you've got the link after link. In this story here, you've got link after link of how many chains?
3.
In just this picture.
One.
Just one.
Oh, wow.
So you've got one chain
Yeah.
and you've got 4 links. So he's given the start and he's given these 4. Now, when I did it, I tricked you a little bit because I did this. I said you've got a start and then you've got another chain and a start and another chain. And the reason I did that is because Ellen White says prophecies in the plural. So you have to put line upon line together. So Ellen White says prophecies, and so that was the 3 that we mentioned, because it was 677, 457, and 508. So we had all these 3 commencement days, and she says prophecies in the plural. But now she's saying vision in the singular. So what do you know about all of this? How many visions is there all of this?
1, 2, 3.
How many visions must this be?
1.
Habakkuk says
Make up one big
singular vision.
Yeah.
So here's a singular vision that you have. But there's a problem now, because you had this chain and you had 3 start dates. So it looks like you've got 3 separate things, but we're saying it's only 1. So the way we're going to resolve that is this. We're going to get the longest chain, and we'll put it here. Here's the longest chain. It's 3, 4, it's 6 links long. And then we're going to get the next chain, and we're going to see that that's only 4 links long, and the other one's only 2 links long. And what was he shown? The commencement, the commencement, and the commencement. 3 commencement dates. But he was shown link after link. He wasn't shown the end date, but he calculates that himself because he knows how long the chain is. But he says he was shown link after link, which means he's shown all the intermediate steps. So there are 3 prophecies, but how many visions? 1 vision. So we have to get 3 and turn it into 1. So how do you get 3 into 1? We're going to get this one and put it on top of this one and put it on top of this one. So this start date here, I'll put C2, commencement 2, commencement 1 and commencement 3. Commencement 2 is a prophecy on its own, but it's part of the same
chain.
Big prophecy.
Same vision. It's part of the same vision. So this commencement is actually what would we call it here? It would just be a link. So C2 is only a link in C1.
Yeah.
And then the 3rd commencement would only be just another link in this long chain. So you've got separate prophecies, but you've only got 1 vision. And what you'll find is all of these commencement dates are just links in the chain. And she called it a chain of truth. And what did we say the truth is? So you know when she says the prophecies, and then she says the chain of truth, singular, she's talking prophecies in the plural with a singular vision. So when you combine all those thoughts together, you don't have 3 chains. What you've actually got is 1 chain. Here's the chain, and he's given, the commencement. Because there's only 1 commencement of 1 truth, of 1 vision. But we spoke about 3 commencement dates. But they're not really commencement dates. What are they? They're links in the chain of truth. So when you start thinking about all of this, what is 332?
I think
A link. And 490, a link. Does anybody know what 490 is on top of their head? Don't answer it. No, the answer is no. Okay, you may do, but we don't know what 490 is. We'll have to do some research. But William Miller knows what 490 is. How does he know? Because angels came to his mind and gave him that information, if you like, or helped him to work it out. So here's 490, and the next one we'd put on is 508, then 538, and it would go on. And how many visions are we dealing with? One vision. And everything here is all just links on that vision. So, does that all make sense?
yeah.
Okay. Now, potentially we've come to this chart and we've never seen it before. We've never seen the chart before. Let's go and look at all the numbers on the chart, because that's what we want to do. Each one of those numbers is what? What is each one of those numbers? They're a link. And he's given the commencement link, and he's given all the links in between. And he's got a simple job. All you have to do is, if you know the length, you can work out, I'll put it here, a dot, I'll go to it here. This is the last link. If you know every single link, then you can work out the last link, and here's the pot of gold. This is, you've arrived. This is what your goal is to get to. But you need to go all the way through to make sure everything's neat and tidy. So let's go to this chart, and what you really need to do is get a copy of this and analyse it carefully.
You have got a copy.
Because you're going to have to take my word for it, because we're going to do this in about 15 seconds.
Download.
And you can't study this chart in 15 seconds. It's hard to see. If I can take this off without messing it up, just put it here for a second. When they produced this chart, they helped you. They were really helpful. They make it so plain that you don't have to worry about all of these numbers. Don't have to worry about all the numbers, because it's right here. And this is called a what? A table. Right here. A table of events. A column. Because we all know about Excel. And it's going to tell you where you start and where you end. So, where are they starting? I don't know if you can read it from that distance. What's the first number they've got here?
677.
Just here. It says 700. And it goes 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's BC, 100. Then the cross. Then it goes 100, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It goes all the way. 1500. 16, 17, 1800s. And then it's got 1843, ends here. So they've already told you where it begins and where it ends. So we're going to do a rough shot, because we're only done 15 seconds of this. Where does it begin according to our table? What
700.
700. We've got 700 here. So you're at 700. And we'll just skip over this for a second. It finishes at 1800 down here. So when you talk about the vision, when you talk about the truth, when you connect in the chain of truth, if I said the chain of truth, the chain is the truth, all I'm doing is taking that word out and putting vision here. This is the vision of truth. And how long is the vision of truth? It begins 700 BC and goes all the way to 1800. And every single number on this chart, go through every single number and you'll all see that they all fit into that block from 700 to 800. And how many visions are there that you go from here to here? How many visions are there? One vision. This is one vision. So my question is, what's this 332? What is 332?
A link.
It's only a link, that's all it is. So let's go to one that you know, because we've dealt with the issue of 457. What's 457?
That's the start of it.
What is 457?
Manasseh.
I don't care about the dates.
It's just still another link.
332 is a link. This is just another link in what? In the vision that's this long. So we have to, if we're gonna, you know, if we're gonna get into an argument, a debate or discussion, if it says here, when I am reproved, if you look at Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 1, that reprove means when I get into an argument with you, a discussion, so we're having an argument, an apology, a defence. When you want to get into you have to read carefully. Because if we're not going to do that, we're just going to make up things. So I'm trying to read carefully, I'm trying to reconcile, using line upon line, repeating and large, that we've got to deal with this chain of truth concept, multiple prophecies concept, and what she just says here, the truth plain upon tables, but Habakkuk's going to say the vision plain upon tables. So as we've joined all of those concepts together, what we've seen is this. How many chains are there?
One.
There's one chain. How many prophecies were there that we just looked at? 3. There were 3 prophecies, but those 3 prophecies, with their own little bits of intricacies in them, are just part of the chain of truth, singular or definite article. One vision with many prophecies in it. And that one vision needs to be made plain upon tables. We'll start with this one. It got made so plain, they give it to you here. Starts 700 BC, ends 1800 AD. That's the vision, the chain of truth. And every other number on there is not a vision. It's just a link in this chain. So here's the length of this vision. Now remember, this is just a rough guide. The purpose of this, actually, what they've done is, you may not have realised, but when they put all these graphics down, the reason they put the goat here and not down here is because they're lining this goat up with this table. They're actually lining them up as best as they can. Because these numbers run, you know, in centuries, it's not that easy to do, but that's the general kind of gist of what they're trying to, of the aim. So let's run through all of these numbers, and you tell me what the earliest number that you can find on this chart. I'll do it for you.
677.
The earliest number is 677, which is in agreement with the 700. And if you look at the latest number, we don't even have to look at the chart because they give it right here. It says 1800, then it says 1843.
Yeah.
This 1843 is a continuation, and it's so important they blew it up, you know, double the size. But if you look on here, the latest number is 1843. You go from 677 to 1843. Okay, that's really simple, isn't it? Now, there was a mistake on this chart. And the Whites admitted to the mistake. The Millerites admitted to the mistake. But it's the truth, the vision. So you come onto this chart, because you've already got this one and they've hammered all the truths out, they're not going to give you the table. They're going to do the table in a different way. The way they're going to do the table is they're going to put it here at this central column. And look where it starts, 700 BC, and it drops down to 1800 AD. So they're doing the same thing here as they did, I've put it behind here, is the same thing that they've done here. And they're going to give the same numbers, but they're going to make it a lot clearer so you don't get confused. It starts with 677, it goes all the way through. What's 538?
Link.
It's a link.
Yeah.
Links. They're all just links. Don't think of them as visions. They're just links in one vision. Because that's what Habakkuk says. So, we'll pause that for a minute because we haven't finished the point here. So when you get into a discussion where someone says the 2520 is erroneous, you have to ask them, well, can you explain Habakkuk chapter 2? Take them to Spalding and McGann, page 1, paragraph 3, and ask them what the chain of truth is. Not the chain of truth. When she says make the truth plain upon tables, show them that whatever the vision Habakkuk's dealing with is the same truth that Ellen White's dealing with. So they see those connections. Then take him here and say, she said singular. There's how many visions are here? People say, oh, there's lots. But there can't be. There only has to be one vision. Because they don't understand the concept of the chain of truth. Now it's a bit of work But if you can see it, you can explain it to someone else, they can see it. This is not manipulation of numbers or anything. This is not some vision that Ellen White hasn't spoken about. It's all there encoded for us. Began in 700, ended in the 1800s. Let's refine the numbers. Begins 677 and ends in 1843. But there's a mistake on this chart, and they're going to refine the mistake, and they do it really easy for you. 677 to 1844. How many visions is that? One vision. And it contains every single piece of information that's on this chart, all in here. So you've got this vision here. I'm going to drop this 3 out and make it into a 4. And this, all you have to do is do some maths. And when you work out the maths, this is 2520. So if that's 2520, the 2520 must be the chain. What was the chain? It was truth. What was truth? It was the vision. It was the vision that Habakkuk is dealing with. And Habakkuk is using the word hazon. So you know the hazon is the 2520 vision. And we haven't even gone into great controversy yet. We haven't even gone there yet. And you can, and actually, out of all of this, we're still only on the first that. We're not even on all the rest of the that's yet. And I think, what argument is there after this? No, there's no more argument because it's just so plain up on tables. On a whiteboard, it's so plain you can see it. But we'll press on a bit. Because
Why
it
does
just,
it start at 700 though and not 677?
oh, because what they're doing here is this is just a rough scale. They're just giving, you know, if you use e-books, and I know not for Stone, say if this was my phone, and you've got a Bible which is 1,500 pages long, on many apps, many programs, you can get your thumb and you can run down, and it will jump 100, like it will jump into hundreds. It will say page 100, 200, 300. It's just jumping all the way down, and you stop, and then it opens up, and you have to find the page you want. That's all that's doing. This is just giving you an approximation of where everything is.
So why would you take the 2520 from 700 then and not 677?
I'm not. I've done it from 677.
Okay.
Here it's 677
Okay.
accurately, because I was just showing you that they're helping you to give you the guide. They're saying the vision's this long.
Yeah.
That's how long the vision
I
is.
just missed that little
Okay.
bit, that's all right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I started off with here, a broad scale.
Yeah.
Then I said, find the number that it starts.
Sure.
677 is the
I'm
oldest
with
number
you.
on that chart.
I'm
Great.
with you.
Okay, we're on. So we're in this state that's falling them again. That the truth should be made plain upon tables. We've tackled that bit. Then it says that the earth and the fullness thereof is the Lord's. So that's another Bible verse, which we're not going to go to. But what does she mean that the earth and the fullness thereof is the Lord's? What does it mean when the Bible talks about the earth and the fullness of it? It's talking about money. This is money she's going to be dealing with now.
Sorry, what are you reading from now?
Spoiling them again.
Yeah.
Paragraph 1.
Yeah.
Sorry, page 1, paragraph 3. Same statement. It's the next that. We did that should be plain. And the next one it says that the earth and the fullness thereof is the Lord's. So Christ, God says, I don't need your money because I own cattle on 1,000 hills. Everything's mine anyway.
You got it?
No, it hasn't got that. It's only a very short time.
Everything the Lord owns. So that's the point she's saying now, that the earth and the fullness thereof is the Lord. The Lord owns all your money. Because now she's going to make a plea. No, you find the thing.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's been really condensed, this application, because we've got 1.3, but we haven't got the rest of it. So we've only got portions of it.
What program is that?
E.G. White.
Could you just borrow your phone, because that doesn't sound right to me.
No.
Yeah.
It's complicated. Don't you do it?
So say it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you've got the
Yeah.
old one.
I've
But
got the old one.
yeah, but let me just have a look.
She'll,
No,
she'll,
I've got the old one too. Mine's
She'll-
not working.
I'll just have
she'll,
a
she'll
look.
sort it out in a minute, but just read with my sister. It says, I saw that the truth should be made plain upon tables. We've done that. That the earth and the fullness thereof is the Lord's. This is a reference that
No, that's
about money.
Oh,
That's in the Bible. He was just making a reference. They couldn't find the cattle on 1,000 hills.
Okay.
You just quoted the other Bible reference, and that wasn't there.
So, the earth and the fullness thereof. Now she's making a plea for money. She says this. Not actually making a plea. The next that necessary means should not be spared to make it plain. So that's why I'm saying it's about money. First she says, we've got to make the truth, this vision, plain upon tables. And I've defined what the vision is. So she says, the 25-20 is so important, and God owns all the money anyway. Don't make any excuses to spend your money on promulgating this one truth. The most important truth that Adventism stands upon is the 25-20. And you're not supposed to spare your money to finance and resource, not just your money, but your effort, everything. But in the context of this, it's talking about money, not manpower. Because it says that necessary means, that's money, should be spared, should not be spared to make it plain. And to make it plain means you need to produce a chart to make it all clear cut and all straightforward.
Wow. I wonder how long it took them.
If you make an application of this in the end of the world, and people start saying, don't come to meetings that they talk about the 25-20, or this is the distraction, my response is this. Adventism is supposed to be spending a lot of money going around the world teaching the 25-20. So that's what she's just said here, according to my reading of that.
Yeah.
Not the 2300 days, not any other prophecy, but the 25-20. We should be putting our money where our mouth is on this one issue. So that's the street. That's all that's on it. He says, don't shortchange the Lord, because this is about God's issue. Don't shortchange Him to make this plain. Now, I'm not saying we're supposed to be spending our money printing out charts and giving them to everybody, but there is a place for that. But what I'm suggesting, an end-time application of this, is that this movement is forbidden from shying away from this issue about dealing with the 25-20, because it's the vision that needs to be made plain to Adventism, and we should be spending money and resources doing that. And we could just stop there, but we'll move on. The next one. I saw that the old chart was directed by the Lord. So the old chart that she's referring to is this chart here. This chart was directed by the Lord. And that not a figure of it should be altered except by inspiration. So everything on this chart, both the figures, which is the images, and the numbers, none of it should be changed except by inspiration. Now you and I have to work out, what does inspiration mean? Am I inspired? No. Is anybody in the church inspired? No. You need a prophet to tackle this issue of inspiration. So she says we shouldn't be messing around with the graphical representation here, with any of the numbers. All of this should be left intact unless the Lord deems it necessary by inspiration to change that. So that's what the next two that's are. Then the third one, I saw that the figures on the chart were as God would have them. So everything was laid out in the way God wanted them to, but the point she's going to be making here is specifically with the numbers. Now she's really talking about the numbers, but I don't want to shy away from the figures, because we could read another statement from Ellen White, and she says this: people are making charts, and the graphics that they're using, I don't think she quite use the word disgusting, but they're not good. And she said, she actually rebukes me. She said, you're supposed to be, I want you to stop making these charts, because you're not doing them properly. And the other thing is, people want to make money. They want to make money out of the chart making business. So she's fighting all against that issue. I saw that the figures on the chart were as God would have them, and that, so that's the first step. And then the seventh one, that his hand was over and hid a mistake in some of the figures. Now, unless the Lord takes his hand away from any Bible verse, there's no way you're really going to understand what it means. You can put hard effort and hard work into this, but you're not really going to understand the point of it. The Lord has to take his hand, then you begin to understand. So what she's talking about is he put his hand over the year 1843, 1844, and it's just these two that we're dealing with. This one here and this one here. It's just these prophecies here that she's talking about. He put his hand over the way they did their calculation and their assessment, and they made a mistake. That his hand was hid, and his hand was over, and hid a mistake in some of the figures. So when it means his hand was over what? Over the table, over the vision. So he's masking something in the vision. And what is the vision? 2520. The 2520 that's being discussed here. The year 457, what is that? That's it, it's a link. It's just a link. So when she says that Lord was over it and hid a mistake, all that's dealing with is the mistake, as I've just said, 2 calculations, that's the figures in the plural, but it says that his hand was over. His hand is over that movement, over this chart, and when he puts his hand over this table, over this vision, something's going to get obscured. And his vision is the 2520. So they don't understand something about this overall picture, and it's obvious what that is. It's this issue between 43 and 44. So she says figures in the plural. It's those 2 calculations, so that none should see it till his hand was removed. His hand gets removed at the midnight cry. Between midnight and midnight cry, that's when his hand gets removed, and they begin to understand what's going on. So we've tackled that, and I haven't spent that much time in the back end of that statement. We'd have to go back into Spirit Prophecy and bring other Spirit Prophecy passages to really make this point. But I think it's all relatively straightforward, because she explains a lot about the mistake and how it's calculated and what everything's going on in this thing. Do we have any questions so far? We've got one vision, we've got 2 figures, and there's a mistake in the way they're assessing these figures. The 2 figures that they've got the mistake in are not the commencement dates, but it's 677, 457. That's where the 2 figures are, 2 numbers. There's a problem in that, and the problem is in the way they calculate, because there cannot be a mistake here, can there? Why can there not be a mistake in 677? And where did they get the start from?
William Miller.
Yeah, where did he get the start from?
Angels.
Came to his mind.
Yeah.
Ellen White says the commencement was given to him. So he has the commencement, singular. And he has one commencement date. What's the commencement date he's given? 677. Because what is 457? It's a link. And what's 508? A link. They're just links in one vision. So before I did it in the context that there were 3 prophecies, 3 commencements. But in reality, when you think about it, it's only one commencement that he's given, and that's why she stresses the point that you need to get to grips that he understands the link, and he's given them as well, as much as he's given the commencement. Because 457 is not the beginning, it's just a link.
So is she the one that says the chain in the links in the chain, or is that Miller that says that?
She says that.
But that's not in this one, is it?
No, I'll give you the reference for that. We read it yesterday. I'll find it. It's in your notes. Early writings.
229.
229. Thank you. To William Miller and his co-labourers. It was in your booklets. This one is page 16. It was given to preach the message in America, and the light kindled by their labours shone out to distant lands. God sent his angels to move upon the heart of a farmer who had not believed the Bible to lead him to search the prophecies. Angels of God repeatedly visited that chosen one to guide his mind and open to his understanding prophecies which had been ever been dark to God's people. The commencement of the chain of truth was given to him, and he was led on to search for link after link.
It definitely does say that.
Yeah. And in his own testimony, he tells you the first prophecy that he came across was the 25-20. That was the first one. And it says he was given the commencement, and then he was led on. Led on means afterwards. Led on, he gets the links. And he tells you in his own biography, in his own memoirs, that first he gets the 25-20, then everything follows through afterwards. So over and over again, we've tackled this 2 or 3 different ways, and we keep on getting to the same answer. Repeat and enlarge over and over again. One vision, multiple prophecies, and it only starts from 677, goes to 1844. It's straightforward to see. So now we're in Great Controversy, page 351. This isn't in your notes, so you probably need to go on your phones for this one. Great Controversy 351. This is the statement that my sister was talking about.
351.
Yeah, 350. The longest and the last. That statement. Let's have a look at that. It's in chapter 19.
Oh.
As you're finding it, all I'm going to say now is the 351 statement is the primary evidence that everybody comes. But for me, I'm saying the primary evidence is the one that I've just shown you, which was Spalding and McGann. Spalding and McGann and the early writings. They're the only. I think they're the only 2 that I gave you. Spalding and McGann, early writings. With those 2 and just Habakkuk, it really is an open and shut case. 351 is just icing on the cake. This is not prima facie evidence against us. It just is not. Even though it's portrayed in that fashion, that they run around saying we've got the evidence that they're wrong, because otherwise there's the longest and the last. It really is not. It's not good evidence that they have at all.
Starting with the experience of the disciples, yeah.
Yes. Remember, I mentioned this yesterday, and I'm going to reiterate it. Are we all there?
Yes.
We're all there? Is that this is a complicated passage, and you get bogged down in grammar. One of William Miller's rules is this: if you go to a complicated Bible verse, you don't understand what it means, what are you supposed to do?
Right.
Sorry?
Right.
No, you're not supposed to pray.
Preparation.
You're not supposed to sweat. You're not supposed to do anything with that verse. In fact, what you do is you just ignore the verse and you go somewhere else. You go somewhere else that's easier. And the easy verse is going to do what? Explain the harder verse.
And enlarge.
Yes, exactly that. And so when the easy verse is going to be like a wedge, it's going to crack open that hard verse, then you can go back into the harder verse and say, now I know what it means. So that's why I'm saying go to Spalding and McGann, page 1. Go to early writings, page, I can't remember.
74, right?
No,
229.
what page is it?
229.
I was thinking,
229.
oh, I thought it was something else. I'll have a quick look.
Or 74 on the daily.
Not the daily.
Page 16.
229, yeah, he's right. Page 229, early writings, page 16 in your notes. I just used those 2 and William Miller's own biographical work. 3 documents to prove what I've just done here. And they're easy. Why don't we go for the easy ones instead of wrestling with complex grammar? But they want to do that. Do you use the word bamboozle? I think it's even an Australian word.
Yeah.
I think it is. Because it can confuse you.
Yeah.
And you're going to go back. You're going to go back and people are going to use this statement on you. They're going to say, 351, the longest and the last. And you're going to read it and you're going to say, oh, it's got a point. Because you can, if you're a persuasive person, you can persuade people, say, look at it, read it. And you can say, maybe it's right. But don't get beguiled into that. Go to the easy ones. Go to the easy ones. Because this is a hard passage to deal with.
And then understand that they can't contradict each other, right? When you have 2 testimonies,
Yes,
even
yes.
testimonies that already tell you that it's truth, you just can't have a third one that contradicts it. It just can't be.
One saying of the Lord mustn't be used to undo another saying.
No.
Yeah.
You're doing wrong if you're doing that. That's a paraphrase of Ellen White Tatum. We'll read the passage and then we're going to try and make comment. 351. It's not in your booklets,
Oh, okay.
because we won't do it.
What paragraph?
Paragraph 1. Page 351, paragraph 1. Great controversy.
Okay.
The experience of the disciples who preached the gospel of the kingdom at the first advent of Christ had its counterpart in the experience of those who proclaimed the message of his second advent. As the disciples went out preaching, the time is fulfilled, the kingdom of God is at hand, so Miller and his associates proclaimed that the longest and last prophetic period brought to view in the Bible was about to expire, that the judgment was at hand and the everlasting kingdom was to be ushered in. The preaching of the disciples in regard to time was based on the 70 weeks of Daniel 9. The message given by Miller and his associates announced the termination of the 2300 days of Daniel 8:14, of which the 70 weeks form a part. The preaching of each was based upon the fulfillment of a different portion of the same great prophetic period. Now you do a surface reading of that to someone who is new or innocent to all of this, and it sounds convincing that the 2300 days, I mean, it says it is the longest and last prophetic period. Until you mention 2300 days, a couple of sentences afterwards, you think open and shut case.
But it also says of which the 70 weeks form a part, and it's not convincing to me. I can see what you're saying about the grammar and stuff.
Yeah, so if I said, could you explain all of that? Convincingly, it becomes, to me, you end up going into Maya. This passage is.
To me, that reads that the 70 weeks, the 2,300 days are all part of the same prophetic period.
Which is the 25/20.
Which is the 25/20, yeah. Which is the longest period. Actually.
So my question is, if that's how you read it, why does not a theologian with 6 years of theological training?
Because they don't want to.
Doesn't suit their pay
God's put his
packet.
hand over his head like this.
No, it doesn't suit their pay packet. If they go against it, they don't get paid.
I mean, I can see why they see it the other way.
An elder who's got a secular job, he's not interested in money, why can't he read it that way? Why can't he see it?
It has to be something in yourself that you don't want to.
Because they're not willing to look at all the evidence.
I've got a friend who thinks he's a theologian,
Seek and search and you will find.
and he uses that.
You know, what I want to say is, the only thing that you and I should be doing, really, and I fall foul of my own call that I'm going to give you over and over again, is that we should teach. We shouldn't preach.
Yeah.
Preaching is a dangerous game,
Yeah.
and I don't think God's calling us to preach. He's calling us to teach. And as soon as you teach, teaching is to do with, there's an art of teaching, but what are you supposed to be teaching? Teaching is science. Even if you go to English or language arts, or even art, it's all a science. You need to know rules and regulations about what you're doing. And as soon as you do that, I think we're forced really, if you're going to be strict to it, forced to come into philosophical conclusions about, and I kind of tricked you when I said that, is why people do things or why they don't do things, and to comment on that. So for me, all I want to do is just say, this is what it says, facts and figures, numbers, dates, places, and you can go and do what you want with it. Why you want to do it, it doesn't matter. Maybe you're worried about your job, you're worried about your security, whatever it is, it doesn't matter why. Because as soon as you start preaching, the purpose of preaching is not to inform you, it's to scare you. More often it's not, it's to scare you into action, or to encourage you, or to make you feel good, to make you feel bad. It's to elicit an emotional response. But teachers aren't supposed to do that, really. We're supposed to just give information, because we're supposed to tackle the mind and not the heart. So I don't want to scare you.
Can't we do both? Isn't it something that you can do both?
No. And the reason is because in Steps to Christ, it says that only the Holy Spirit can cope or deal or manage with the heart. A human being cannot get into someone's heart. But a teacher, a good teacher, not only can, but it's his responsibility to get into the minds of his students. He's supposed to enter into the mind of the student and place information there. But he can't get into the heart. Only the Holy Spirit can do that. And the reason why it gets dangerous is because you end up entering into judgmental territory. Because we're saying why people do things. And we don't know why. We really don't know why. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter why I'm here. I could be doing it because I enjoy teaching. I like travel. I like sunny climbing. I like meeting people. I'm an extrovert. And I like earning lots of money. Or I want to be bankrupt. Whatever it is, I didn't like my old job. It doesn't matter why I'm here. You shouldn't be worried why I'm here. All you need to be worried about is keeping an eye on what I'm teaching you. And spot the mistakes. Spot the mistakes, which aren't mistakes, they're error. Spot the error of what I'm doing. And don't worry about why I'm here or my motivations. Whether they're good or whether they're bad. It doesn't matter. And so when we get into if you do that, you won't fight with anybody. You won't fight with them and get aggravated or upset if they accept or if you don't. Because it doesn't really matter. Why do you bother if people accept or if they don't? It's their life, it's their salvation. All we need to do is give them the information and go on our merry way. That's a simplistic version. I know it's not that, because if you see children and someone you love, you feel like throttling them and say, accept! We don't want you to die.
We're always told about the plain truth of the Bible, you know, and even though it's wrapped around in mathematical structures and things like that, you know, the Word of God comes through sharper than a two-edged sword, no matter whether we're, you know, sharp as or whether we're as dull as, it'll cut to the marrow, like the Bible says. So at the end of the day, you know, we are told to teach. And, you know, I always think of the quote of education that Ellen White, Sister White says, you know, true education is the ability to think for oneself. I don't need anyone, you know, telling me what to think, because the Lord will teach us, you know, what's right and what's wrong.
And you especially don't want anybody to tell you what to feel.
That's right. Yeah.
And you can't tell someone else what to feel. Like, you're a bad person because you don't accept this.
Yeah, no.
Because you don't know.
That's
I like that double-edged sword, by the way. This double-edged sword. We said the everlasting gospel does what? Produces two classes of people. One good and one bad. If someone's good, what do you say to them? You pat them on the back and say, well done. You've passed.
Put them out to work.
Really good. You encourage them.
Yeah.
If someone's bad, you just say, you're a bad person. Waste of time. Go away. You're judgmental. Yeah? This double-edged sword is... What is this double-edged sword, by the way? It's the Word. And I think Brother Patrick said that the Word is the little book. And I think he said the little book is this message. And I think he said the message is the first, second, and third angel's messages, which is the everlasting gospel.
Amen.
We said all of that. So this sword is what? The everlasting gospel.
Yeah.
3 steps. And what is this sword going to produce?
2 classes.
2 classes of people. And how many edges has it got?
2.
2. 1 for each class. There's a nice one. And there's a bad one.
10 and a 2.
And this nice one is for the wise, and this is for the foolish. Because this message is a message of encouragement, a message of hope. There's all these nice things. There's hope. You know, there's hope to be part of the 144,000. There's hope of overcoming the mark of the beast. This is a glorious hope that the 12 are going to get restored. But if you don't like it, this one is a message of judgment, of doom and gloom. If you don't believe me, go to Ezekiel chapter 2 verse 10. Lamentations, mourning and woe. That all sounds like doom and gloom. That edge there is specifically created for rebellious people. So that, you know, when you read the, that's why it's a double-edged sword. And what is it? You said, what is it? What does it do? This double-edged sword.
It cuts to the marrow.
Yeah, and so marrow. So you've got a bone here, and if you're going to cut it to the marrow, what you need to do to the bone, you need to cut it in half or divide it. In fact, it says a bit more than that. It says it has the ability to divide. And what we say in the everlasting gospel does? It goes into families and divides. Goes to the churches and divides.
To get to the centre anyway.
And you have to get right to the middle. So this whole imagery about this sword is all built into this message. It's got two edges there. It's a double-edged sword because it's got this nice message and it's got this message of condemnation. Because what's about to happen to this church? It's going into Babylon. It's going to be destroyed. But there's a message of hope. If you get the message, you can be saved from destruction. That's what those two edges are on that imagery. And you can only really see that clearly, I think, if you understand this message. If you don't understand this message, you just think double-edged, I don't know what it means. It's maybe one for the church, one for the world, or it could be anything.
Excuse me, would you be able to give us the quote for William Miller where he's giving 3 commencement dates?
VMRD, VEM,
V?
WIN,
W?
WMAD, page 11.
That's where the quote is.
1845, WIM, WMAD, page 11.
Yeah, point 2. Well, it's page 11.
Thank you.
It's quarter to 2. We'll make a break. Okay, we'll make a break. Then this afternoon we'll go to that paragraph and try and address it.
So that's autobiography, is it?
Yes, William Miller's Apology and Defence, written by Joshua V. Himes, and it's basically he's a biography of. I'm not even actually sure it's a biography. I think it's actually first person.
Yeah, it's his, right? It's William Miller.
Yeah, I don't think it's a biography.
That's how I feel.
I think it's basically people have asked him questions and he's given explanation.
So Joshua, what's his name?
Joshua V. Himes, J.B. Himes, Himes.
Yeah.
He's probably the most famous Millerite after William Miller. He was a powerhouse of a man. Let's close with
Yeah. Yeah.
as we're leaving, do we feel hopefully empowered with respect to being able to defend the 25 minutes a little bit more than maybe before?
Definitely, actually.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for your goodness and your watching over us. We thank you for the privilege of being here in this beautiful location with the warm sunshine and the cool breeze. But most of all, Father, we thank you for the fellowship that we can have one with another. We ask and pray, Lord, that you would be with us. And as we have to give our own apology, our own defence of what we believe, help us to keep these thoughts and ideas in our hearts and our minds. May we study them so that they will become us and not separate from us. So that when we're asked to give a reason for our faith, we will be able to defend the things that we understand and the things that you've taught us. As we contemplate the vision, the 2520, we ask and pray, Lord, that these things would be clear in our minds, because we know that we are going to be confronted by our brothers and sisters on this issue. I think especially of my sisters who are going to go back home and they will be confronted with this issue. They've already been challenged on coming here and different people's perspectives of what the 2520 is all about. Help them, Lord, to collect their thoughts and ideas and to explain them in a reasonable way that would persuade people to investigate these things. Be with us and bless us, Father. It's our prayer in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.